CJ, we're back.
We are back, man. This is a little level up. I'm excited, as always. When you hit me up to come back, I was like, fuck yeah, let's do this.
It was time.
It was 100% time.
Well, dude, we were talking before. We were like, that CJ episode, like, I think when we first recorded afterwards, Brett and I were both just like, that was incredible. Is this live?
I should do it live. I should do it live right now.
But that first episode was so awesome. Somewhat, not unexpected, but I just feel like we went deep and it was just such a great conversation. So we're pumped to do number 2.
Hell yeah.
Well, that was the first time we met. And then we also have a very special connection because we were saying this off air. We booked Taylor Collins on the show in August of was it August or July of last summer? Somewhere like towards the back half of the summer. And that was our first really big in-person episode with a dream guest. And he was like, you guys should come out to our house to do that. We had no in-person setup at all. We're like, who do we know that has one that would be down to do this? We're like, CJ. But we didn't know if you could do it. This was pre-baby. And luckily you were able to make time for us generously and gave us an incredible in-person episode. And like to this day, when people ask us, hey, what's a good episode of the show to listen to? We'll be like Taylor Collins because the setup was
he's a beast.
He was a beast.
Yeah.
And CJ Finley, first episode.
Yeah. Well, I think the piece of advice I would give for people is I love storytelling and I love adding stories to my life. So I had heard of Taylor through obviously their brand Epic, and I've utilized their product and I pass them in Whole Foods all the time. And I've used the product for traveling and things like that. And when I ask myself, what is the actual like point of life? It's just to tell a good story and like have fun. The reality of it is make the time that you have worth it. Mm-hmm. So when you ask me to go to this place where it's, I can connect the dots on, I love this brand and I've utilized this product. Now I get to see the person that is behind it or somewhat behind it, obviously, because we know that there's a team that goes into everything. That's a cool story for me to like tie that loop up. And it's a memory that I'm always going to have. So the cool thing is it takes 2 to tango. Like y'all reached out to me and I felt like I had value to provide. And that's how the entrepreneurial world in the good side of it works.
I remember too, just driving around his property a little bit and we were all catching up and just talking about like where we were at in the whole creative process. And you were definitely at a moment of like some inflection point where you were thinking about hiring someone, adding resources. And it was just cool to kind of just be in the car and be able to share stories for like an hour on just like where we're all at and just trying to improve. But I think that like what you did that day was something that always will stand out to me. Just like Brett and I were literally sitting there going, oh shit, like we don't know anyone to do this. And we were just like, let's put our thinking caps on, like who could step up. So you stepping up was just huge, man.
Yeah, man. Somebody's done it out there for me. And speaking of the resources that I was trying to improve, my buddy Scott, I did hire him and we've been kicking ass for, let's see, like 8 months now. I'm losing track of time here, but I completely forgot about that. We were talking about how he'd reached out to me and having conversations with him and kind of like the stressful points of his journey where he was like debating, like, do I leave this thing in Florida and come back to Austin? But it's people like him that even allowed me to even show up for y'all. Like I've learned so much from so many creatives because I just show up to do stuff for free. And going back to the point of what I like purpose of life and giving yourself purpose, I just like picking up skills. So be valuable to people is something that I've always been taught just growing up. And the most value you can bring is just picking up little skills along the way. And the only way you do that is by showing up. So Scott is somebody that I've always looked up to in the creative realm of photography, videography, sound, lighting. And the day that I went out there with y'all, I had a tool belt that I could bring because of all the creatives I've hung around prior to that. But I also had the podcasting side as well. So it's cool to look back on to see like, to even be here and like talking like this, because this is like my dream life. And to be living your dream life is like, I don't know how to put it into words. Like every day I just do stuff I love to do with people I love to do them with.
And on the topic of living your dream life, you very prominently have on your shirt, 1% better every day, which is a term that's thrown out a lot, but I'm just curious what that term means to you and, why wear a shirt with it on there.
Yeah, I purposely wore the shirt today. There was a couple shirts that I had in my wardrobe that I was thinking about. So I have a couple. I do vitamins. I thought about wearing that. I have real food is medicine. Thought about wearing that. That would obviously connect with your audience. But I was like, what connects most with me? So I think if I wanted to connect with you and your audience the most, I would have wore the real food is medicine shirt. But I reflected when I had the shirts in front of me, and I thought, like, in my life right now, what is the most me? And because I recently had a child, my first son, with my lovely wife, I've been reflecting on areas of my life that I need to improve, not just for myself, but for my family. And when I think about improvement, you get to a certain point in your life where you just don't have the time of day to even make more than 1% improvements across the board. Like, there's just so much getting thrown at you. You can't sit there and spend 8 hours on one thing. So, I mean, some people can, like, if you're blessed to do that, but my life doesn't look like that. I have to kind of like move things along at 1% at a time. And for me, what that looks like is, how do I show up as a better father? How do I show up as a better husband? And when you dial those down, it's, how do I be present with him rather than like on my phone? How do I communicate with my wife 1% better? And then start there. And then I go into the business side of things. Like, I have a podcast. I ask myself, how do I get 1% better at the podcast? Well, it's not about downloads or the output. It's about the input. So if I'm inputting 2 a week, how do I input 3 a week, but also the next metric of not only just input a 3rd episode a week, but how do I make each episode more valuable across the board? That's the 1% better. So I just reflected on all areas of my life and just asked, okay, here's my constraints. Here's where I'm at right now. What does it look like to just get 1% better at each of them? And giving myself time to do it. I think that's a point. I'm in a point in my life where I've realized that, like, my earning power is going to be the greatest in my 40s. It's not going to be the greatest in my 30s. So kind of taking that pressure off to be like a millionaire by 35. And I don't have to hustle and grind and do the slogging work to get there. It's like, I know where I'm going. I know who I'm going with, and just do the 1% over and over and over again for another decade. And I'll be right where I'm meant to be.
What's the formula for you for that 1%? Is it a combination of like focus, planning, actually having the vision? I mean, I'm sure it's a combination, but you know, it's something that I feel like if you blink, you can lose your focus and that 1% goes away.
I think it's less about focus and more about priority. It's good to be unfocused. I've found that my best ideas come from when I'm not focused. And a lot of people out there never allow themselves to do that because they're constantly like distracting themselves or trying to bring themselves back from distraction. What I mean by this is they're half-assing across the board. When they're looking at their phone, they know in their minds, like, I should probably be doing something else. So they're half-assing looking at their phone, and they're half-assing what else they should be doing. I've kind of taken the approach that if I'm on my phone, how do I go 200 miles per hour? So how do I write a thread or put a video up or talk to somebody or make a phone call? Same thing with laptop. How do I leverage it in that way? And if I'm off of it, how do I go 180 miles an hour in whatever I'm doing? And allowing myself to kind of not be constrained by what I should be doing and just doing what I feel is the top priority in that moment. So when it comes to, like, I guess let's give a very content-driven example. If we're talking focus and you're talking podcast and you're talking like, okay, my focus this month is to grow the show. Well, a lot of people will probably focus on, okay, who do we reach out to? Who do we get on the show to grow it? They're going to focus on these like little minute details. Rather, if you take a less focused approach and made it more fun and said, okay, we're going to just test 10 different ideas. Like, what's the craziest thing you can do? Let's not be focused for an hour. You're probably actually going to come up with an idea that's going to work much better than if you're like, we got to focus, guys, and like focus on this one task at hand.
Yeah.
And I found that through experience. Some of the Like, here's a great example. Going back to podcasting. My number one piece of content that's gotten, it's probably like 1.5 million views now, was me and Yash fucking around. That sounds weird. Me and Yash setting up a podcast in my kitchen, just testing out lighting of my cameras. And we decided, Yash, here, you host a podcast. Like, just grill me. My number one piece of content was just riffed from not even focusing on the podcast, but in some other unfocused way, we were looking at lighting and testing things. So to the outside world, we were unfocused because we should be working on the podcast or doing whatever. But my number one piece of content that has the most views was from me riffing because I was unfocused. So those kind of things, I prioritize those in my days every single day. And then the rest of my day, to answer your question a little bit more succinctly, is revolving around health, wealth, happiness. So I just take those as a priority. So health, got to train every single day. Wealth, I got to move the needle forward on one of the businesses that I'm working on. Happiness, I got to take care of my family and these other little things around me that bring happiness and peace and joy to me.
I really love what you were saying earlier about taking this pressure off yourself with these arbitrary metrics of being like, oh, I feel this pressure to be a millionaire by 35 or be a millionaire by whatever the age is. And I would say that one of my favorite things about you is you're one of the best, if not the best contacts that I know of just being fully committed to playing the long game. Like I've noticed whether it's on Twitter or your podcast downloads, you'll just report some of like the incremental month over month growth metrics, where I think for some people with the wrong mindset, they would almost be discouraged by that. But for you, it's like that concept of 1% better. It's like you're growing every month, but you've also accepted that nothing is going to stop you from achieving your goals. So you're like, I know that I have a long enough time horizon that if I keep recording podcasts, I keep shooting shots, I keep writing tweets, I'm going to achieve the goals that I have. And I'm just curious where that mindset comes from, because we just want success so badly, where you're like, I'm willing to endure over a long enough time horizon to get to where I know I can get to.
This question comes at a really great time, because if I looked at my podcast, and one of my coaching calls today, I was showing my podcast downloads as an example. Since my son has been born, my downloads have like gone down significantly, because I haven't been spending as much time marketing the podcast or bringing guests on. I've only had one person come and shoot in person since he's been born. On the outside, I think a lot of people, and old me 10 years ago, would be beating myself up. But when you mention growth, man, I'm going to put out 3 episodes this week, and I have a 3-month-old.
Yeah.
That is much harder to do than like when I had before him, and I was having on the upstreak of my downloads were like literally like exponentially growing. And then now they're like exponentially going down again, because I just have slacked off in that area. But I haven't slacked off where it matters. I think that's the key, is like growth is holistic. It's not one point of life. Now, if you're Michael Jordan, great example is his growth was singularly basketball. But what was the cost of that? He was an asshole in a lot of other areas, and people didn't like him in a lot of other areas, right? Not a good friend, not a good family member. So you see, like, you need to make the decision. And when I talk on podcasts, it's you can make the decision. And I've made the decision over the course of my life that my growth is going to be holistic. I want to be a great dad. I want to be a great husband. I want to be a great athlete. I want to be a great businessman. I want to be a great friend. And I want to be around really awesome people. If I achieve that, the bank account is going to look what it's going to look like. It might not be hundreds of millions of dollars, but if I'm around great people and I have great skills, like great opportunities are going to come my way, and I'm going to be just fine. So I've just focused on the metrics that actually matter, which is living a fulfilling life. And where it comes from is death, like thinking about death and thinking like I've been sick in my life and have like wanted to die and questioned my life so many times that now I'm at the point where if anything isn't just aligning with me, I just don't do it, because there's no fucking point. Like I could be gone at any moment. So why am I going to waste my energy on things that don't fire me up?
How has your perspective shifted as being a dad and entrepreneur? Because I mean, I cannot imagine the different things you're juggling, from time constraints to everything else. I mean, it must be
Man, I was lazy.
freaking insane.
I used to be like 3 months ago, 3 months and a day ago, because he's 3 months old exactly today. I was lazy compared to me now.
Really?
Like, yeah, you just don't have a choice. So like in entrepreneurship, I mean, you're your own boss. So you find little moments to slack here and there. Everyone does it, no matter who you are. You could be freaking Elon Musk. He's taken off some seconds in his mind. So you're not a robot,
Totally.
right? So he's smoking weed with somebody somewhere, just doing whatever. But for me, that's what I've realized is just there were small moments throughout the day where I had an extra gear. I knew I had an extra gear and I just didn't press it, versus now I feel myself pressing that gear because I don't have an option. So right before this, like my wife had a phone call at 2 p.m. She's working from home today. Our nanny starts next week. So I've been home with him up until today. I was by myself with him, working with him and playing with him when he's awake. And right before I was coming here, I was solving a problem he was crying. She had a call at 2. So I'm like, shit, what do I do? So I get his swing. He loves his swing. I moved his swing from the living room into her office, facing her. He stops crying. She looks at me, gives me the thumbs up. I'm now here. Now, when I go home, it used to be, okay, I have some energy or time to put into myself, but it's immediately like, hey, what does he need or what does she need? And then like navigating that and giving energy to that. So it's like 14-hour days, which I used to say that I was doing 14-hour days or 12-hour days or whatever, but you just don't get any seconds off. I think for a lot of people that stresses them out, but for me, I feel the most alive I've ever felt because I'm like, damn, I'm fucking jacked. I can run fast. I'm strong. Like I've put so much energy into reading books and meeting cool people and learning on podcasts. This is what I'm built for. And I'm finally doing like what I'm built for. So I just feel great doing it. And I want to convey that because other people out there, I think, have fears around it. But if you take care of yourself, you take care of your mind and your body, the moment you have a child, you start realizing what the purpose of life is and you just step into it and you're just like, man, this is what it's all about. Like juggling all this stuff and life just feels in flow once that happens because you're just like, I got my family. I don't need anything else.
Yeah.
The business and all that stuff, that's fun. I'm doing that for fun now and I put all my energy into it, but I got what I need. What else do I need?
Earlier, you said very simply that you don't do things that don't align with like that ultimate version of yourself that you want to become. And I'm just curious, would you say that you're a master of saying no? And if you are, do you have advice for people that struggle to say no and maybe overcommit to things that they ultimately shouldn't be doing and they know deep down?
When we're playing video games, what do they get? It goes like amateur, novice. Remember like back in the day?
It like depends on the game. Like
that's what immediately when you think master, like I'm working towards master. But I would say if we were playing a video game right now, go back to like N64 in the 90s, where it's like you have the first level, then you have, maybe there's 4. You have the first, second, third, and fourth. I feel like I'm going from the second to third right now because I did have my son. When I have multiple kids, I think is when I'm going to go from like third to the fourth. But I would say that when I started this journey 10 years ago, I'd say is when I really kind of started thinking about entrepreneurship and podcasting and all these different things I'm doing today. I was completely novice at saying no. I said yes to everything. And I think you got to do that in the beginning to build your network up. Your network is your net worth. There's a equation I made that I live by. Exposure equals opportunity equals currency. And you can flip those around. So when you're younger and you don't have any currency, you need to do whatever it is to expose yourself where you need to be to get more opportunity. And then you turn those opportunities into currency. Where I'm at in my life right now, I can flip that equation. I have currency. So I can buy opportunities or I can buy exposure, right? Like I could place $1,000 ad in a newsletter that gets me more exposure, or I could buy myself a $10,000 retreat and earn opportunities from that retreat or whatever. So you can flip that equation around. And when I think about living in those ways and where I started at, I failed for a long time at getting to the next level of that. So much so that my wife almost didn't marry me because of it. Like when I quit my job and she didn't know what I was up to or what I was doing, like I was all over the place trying to earn that exposure and saying yes to so much that I wasn't saying yes to her. And she actually threw a ring at me She's like very mild. Like I could never picture her doing something like that. And that set a tone for, holy shit, I'm fucking up pretty bad right now. And I readjusted to understand like what I should be saying no to. And I started analyzing that and started saying yes to more of the things that align with where I want to go. And now today I have more of a luxury to say no to things that I don't necessarily want to do. But I want to make it very clear to people, like I still do a lot throughout the day that I don't want to do.
Yeah.
It's not about doing things that you don't necessarily want to do. It's about not doing anything that doesn't align to the long-term mission, like Brett said. Everything I do has a purpose to the long-term mission, but that doesn't mean that I just openly want to do it. Like, great example, taking the trash out. Every Thursday, the trash truck comes. Like, do I want to like get off the couch or like use my energy to go around the house, pull the trash out? No, but the long-term mission is like keep our house a great place to live in. You don't want it to be trashy, right? So it's like, go take the fucking trash out, CJ.
Yeah. How long did it take you to get to that point where like you were kind of all over the place and dealing with some of the relationship stuff to like a point where it was like very clear that you had direction in your life?
That is a really good question. Because I feel like even with direction, it still feels messy. I'd say the first time I could sleep better, I think that's how I'm going to judge it, is like when I could sleep better and I didn't have just thoughts that were constant, was when Noah moved here. When I first started hanging around Noah. And the reason I say that is because I could get along with somebody that's so sharp and has been around the block in the startup world. I realize, dang, I have a lot of value to offer. And everything I've done up to this point was, I feel like I introduced him to Squatch and he's like helped Squatch grow tremendously. And some of the other things we've worked on have been super freaking awesome. And my life has just exponentially grown because of that. So that was, he came here January 1st of 2021. And I'd say that year is when I had a transition of, okay, like the things I've been working on, like I know what I'm doing. I'm confident I can show up and I can own my space as a man and as a entrepreneur. And before that, I think there was a lot of fear. COVID hurt me in a lot of ways because one of my dreams was to start my little incubator and have my office. And I started that, the Thrive HQ. I got it up and running. It was much like this. The idea was I wanted to make work enjoyable. And I didn't feel like we needed to work in stuffy corporate spaces. So I rented out a place. It was $3,600 a month. So we had our mortgage that we bought a house and we had this little rental space for $3,600 a month. And this was the time that my wife finally trusted me and like gave me the green light and was like, you need to do this. Like, let's go. We probably dropped $10,000 into it to get the gym up and going and the bottom floor and then the office and the podcast studio. It looked beautiful. My buddy Mike Lehman-Jelly came out and built it out. And I spent a month just hustling to get it up and going. And then COVID happened. I ran 2 events out of it. And then I had to look at myself in the mirror and be like, how am I going to pay rent for the next however long this pandemic goes on? Because in the beginning, everyone was just freaking out. And you're just like, and I'm sitting there like, holy shit, did I just make the wrong decision? And trying not to beat myself up for attacking my dream and also keeping that from my wife because like I didn't want to stress her out. So I'm like taking on all this pressure. But what it forced was like pressure makes diamonds. I had to go out there and sell myself and just make it work. So I locked up a couple consulting deals that paid the rent and just kept the lights on and just kept going. And then 6 months later, I met Noah and then I talked to him and then moved my podcast studio into his, kind of was able to get off the lease at the other place and then just keep rolling. And that like transition, because I was able to not only keep the lights on and not quit, also invest a lot into my relationship and build a better relationship with my wife. And then at the end of that, we ended up selling our house for handsome profit, I was just like, man, I got it now. And now it's like not about slowing down and like keeping it. It's like, how do I triple down? Like, how do I keep going and keep leveraging and keep up with that attitude, the never give up attitude? So that was long-winded answer, but I had to think back, like, when did I really feel like I could turn the corner? It was like 2021 was that year.
It's interesting how all these perceived negative experiences at the time, there's just so much good that comes from that too, whether it's the experience that you just laid out that we didn't know about you, your health experience with your stomach. It's like all these things have ended up fueling you into the person that you are now. And I'm sure that just gives you a ton of confidence because you're like, anything that comes my way, I know that there's going to be some good that comes out of it. I know Jocko says that a lot, and it's cliche, but it's such a good quote.
Yeah, it's being in this office. So to paint a picture for people, we're in Congress Ave, downtown Austin, Texas. I was on a panel at a couple streets over. It was like probably in 2019 or 2020, one of those times. And to your point, it was like 2 young entrepreneurs and 2 older entrepreneurs. And I was the least accredited to be up there. Like from a bank account standpoint to like, if you looked up our websites and whatever, but I have the grit. I had the grit that I feel like they were lacking. And I live in the trenches day in and day out. Still do. I always will. And I had the most people come up to me after that panel. And I started asking, like, why did you come to me? Because like it was significantly more. It was like 10 people were coming to me. 1 person was going to the other 3. So I picked up on it and I was just like, why do y'all like are asking me questions? And the one guy goes, because when you were up there, I felt like you were the most real. You said that if you have an idea that you want to bring to life, you're willing to sleep in a car to make it happen. And I told him I was able to say that because it's the truth. I didn't lie. Like when I was in college, all my friends got their own bedrooms and like spent $1,000 a month on rent, all this stuff. And as much as my dad pissed me off because he was like, you're commuting your first year, you don't have money to do otherwise. And I was pissed. I had to commute. I had to wake up at 6 a.m. I would drive. We had practice at 8 a.m. Part of the season. I would go to class all day. We'd do more at night. I would drive home 45 minutes, wake up and do it again. So then it made me problem solve. Okay, I don't have $1,000 a month to get a room, but I do have $300 or $400 cash because I work on the side as a busboy to ask a couple friends like, hey, can I put a futon in your living room and live on your futon? So half my college career of like studying engineering, doing sports, being in a fraternity, I was in a living room and I put all my shit underneath the futon. I didn't even have a closet. So I just took that approach into entrepreneurship of I need nothing to build something because I've been doing it for a decade. Once I connected those dots, and then when I get up on these panels and things like that, that hits home the most with people because they think there's some secret sauce or something that they need to give them approval or somebody to tell them to do something. And the reality is you don't need anything. You got a phone, you can change the world. Period.
How much of that, like, I'm just willing to do whatever it takes to make it happen is from sports, or is it just something that you feel like you've just accumulated, like that willpower in you over time?
I think a lot of, I'd be naive to say that a lot didn't come from sports. I was a 4-sport athlete and I knew that I could feel at times, like in a game where, you know, that where the game's in limbo and you can like feel it. You're just like, who's going to take this? And that's where I thrived. I was like, as soon as that feeling in the game happened, I was just like, all right, extra energy and we're going to take it just by will. And I saw it in every team that I played with, every sport that I played. It was the same thing. You can watch NBA, NFL, NHL, and you can, as a fan, you can just see it. You're just like, oh man, like 2-0 is the worst lead to always have because the team takes the gas off just a little bit. And then as soon as it gets to 2-1, then the team that's still in the lead is starting to sweat and it's like, oh my God, then it becomes 2-2. So momentum's a huge thing in life. So I've always just kind of reflected, just whatever it takes, just don't lose the momentum. And going back to the podcasting with my son being born is like, the momentum is just don't put out 0 episodes. I don't care about the downloads. Just make sure that you get 2 out a week, just like you always have been for as many years as you've been doing it, and just keep the momentum regardless. And that 100% has come from sports. Now I think if I were to psychoanalyze myself, the like willingness to be in the dirt and like do the hard things that most people don't want to do, that comes from directly from my upbringing and like just seeing my parents and having a connection to where I saw they grow up and like what they went through. You start realizing like, man, like my life is a piece of fucking cake, like compared to what, like living in the 60s and 70s and prior to that. Like my dad graduated high school at 16, had to go to college early. He had 3 younger sisters. So like when he was trying to be a kid, he was like taking care of kids rather than like doing what he wanted to do. So it was a whole different ball game back then. And just understanding that and going back to storytelling and being willing to hear other people's stories, it makes me reflect on my life. It's just like, how can I be grittier? How can I be dirtier? And then once you turn that switch on, you almost start to like it.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to be careful because like, I'll like that stuff, but it doesn't always move the needle for it. Like I got to think, I got to like take a step back and not get so addicted to that dirty feeling. Because it's not where my time should be spent at this point in my life.
That was going to be my next question. How do you elevate yourself out of the gritty mindset to like, even because I think people who have that pain tolerance are just willing to like stick it out, but sometimes their time is just way better spent like elevating it and making sure that you see yourself actually getting to that next level instead of just being the guy who's always doing the bootstrappy blue collar stuff.
Accountability. That's the word. Like I have a built-in accountability partner with my wife. So I get no slack when it comes to, if she thinks I'm doing something that's not worth my time, she's going to tell me. Mm-hmm. If you're not in a relationship or not married, that's where like, look at Brett and Harry here. It's like, find somebody else that has similar goals to you and just constantly be saying like, checking in with each other. Is your time being aligned with where you say you want to be? So, I know Noah and a lot of other friends, we always check in pretty much every quarter, like with the question, how are you feeling towards where you're going in your life and your trajectory? Just find some friends that do that for you. And if I feel like my friends are out of line or not head in that direction, I feel like I'm the direct friend that will be like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
You told me one thing, but you're doing another.
Yeah, that's really good. I wanted to bring up the fact that you've spoken about your wife, Erin, a few times. And I think a really good litmus test for guys that I meet is just how do they speak about their girlfriend, their wife, their significant other when she's not there. And the first day that I met you, she came up in conversation and you just had the most positive things to say about her. And one of the things that you mentioned is that she really pushed you and elevated you to become like a better version of yourself that you didn't even think was possible. And the reason why I think that's so interesting is there's this like monk mode culture almost going on Twitter right now. And I think a lot of men think that they need to be extremely selfish in their 20s and single being part of that, and that a partner will actually detract from that ideal version of yourself. And even with myself, with Dana and the way that you speak about Erin, and it seems like when you find the right person, it's like everything clicks and that the right woman can elevate you to a level that you never even thought possible. So I just want to hear a little bit more about Erin's impact on you and talking through that, because I think it was just so powerful when you said it. I
love this topic, and I'm going to switch can to will elevate. It's not an if. Like, it's just you find that right person, and it's a guarantee. But I think the answer is it depends. Like, that's how I kind of approach everything in life, depending on what you're looking to build. But if you're looking to build anything that is going to be working with other people, so you're going to be bringing more people on your team, they're all going to have relationships. They're all going to have lives outside of whatever you're working on. And if you reflect on that and you say, okay, like I'm potentially going to hire fathers. I'm going to hire husbands. I'm going to hire wives. I'm going to hire mothers. Great businesses are built off trust and empathy and connection. If you can't connect with your people, you're not going to build a great business. So this monk mode, it actually pisses me off a lot because they're not studying the greats of the world. Mm-hmm. If you study the greatest companies in the world, all those founders and CEOs got married young. Mm-hmm. Study it. You'll see.
All young.
I didn't say they didn't get divorced though. A lot of them fuck up and get divorced and do all this stuff. But they, from a young age, got married and found somebody. I think part of the reason when I study that is it takes the urge to distract yourself away. Mm-hmm. So I have 2 things I focus on. Family, 3. Family, fitness, business. Boom. I don't have that, oh, let me swipe on Tinder. Like, what am I going to, like, when nobody's watching, I'm going to go in the DMs and I'm going to look up some girls and I'm going to DM them. Like, that just has never existed in my life. One, because I was with Erin before that. Stories didn't exist when I first started dating her. So I could see posts, but like, that was it. So I can't speak to what it's like to have that temptation, but I do know that if you take the energy of temptation away and you put that energy into building something with somebody else, you will build a better life. It'll parlay over into everything else. Because when I go home, instead of being alone with my thoughts, I'm alone with somebody who's sharper than I am. Mm-hmm. And she literally just lays into me. And I'm like, oh, that's great. And like, and of course, in some ways I'm the better half. But in many ways, she's been the one that has sharpened me up. And I feel like we're at this great place now where, I'm fulfilling kind of what my destiny would be. Like, I can't really think of anything that I want to do that I couldn't do, mm-hmm. if that makes sense. Like, yeah, if I had millions of dollars, I could do what I'm doing now at scale more. But like, I'm not the type of person that like needs to travel the world and be on private jets and do all that stuff. That's never been of interest to me. So I'm at this point where like, okay, I got the person that's going to help me become the person I want to be. I'm just going to keep going.
That's what Mark Sisson said to us on the show. He's like, when you make $100 million, you're going to be doing the same shit. You're going to be eating really good. You're going to be working out. You're going to spend time with your wife, spend time with your kids. It's like, not that much is going to change. It's really the simple things that are going to move the needle for you.
That's great advice from him.
Where does fulfillment actually come from? Is kind of the root question. How do you guys keep growing together? I feel like that's something that really ambitious people struggle with. Like if there's ever an imbalance there, it can be tough.
Growth comes from challenge. Growth comes from discomfort. It doesn't come from, like, if we sit on our couch and we do nothing, it's not going to come from that. So we look to stretch ourselves, and we both check in with how are we stretching ourselves in certain areas, because when you stretch yourself in a relationship, only one person can be stretched at a time. You can't have both people stretching themselves, because then like you're going to distance yourself apart. Like if you're watching this online, like I'm literally moving my hands apart. Like think like stretching. One person can go all in, the other person needs to fit into that supportive role, and then vice versa. So we're at a time in life where she's finally getting her body back after giving birth. So it's figuring out what does she want to stretch herself a little bit into. One of the areas is she's looking at growing her TikTok and doing more social media and kind of building her own side hustle. So she's stretching herself in that area. So how can I support there? She wants to run a marathon, so getting her up to speed there. And then we're doing something together, which is High Rocks mixed doubles for the first time. So We're going to be training together for that. And that comes in November. And then I'm doing a 50K December 2nd. And I think after that one, that's when we're going to figure out like, okay, what's Erin's like goal? She's like sitting there thinking right now, what is the marathon that she wants to do? She said Houston, which is I think January or February, but I was like, that's bullshit. Like, let's actually go somewhere cool. But that's kind of like on the horizon. So we look to grow through adding things on the calendar that are going to make us uncomfortable and force us to work better together.
CJ, not to change gears too much, but you recently put out a piece of content basically proudly stating that you spent $10K on a sauna. which I think is interesting because so many people will just focus on the cost of the sauna, not the benefit that sauna is going to give you.
They'll focus on the price.
The price. And not the benefit, or viewing it as like a holistic asset. And I'd love for you to maybe unpack that piece of content and why it was important for you to actually invest in something like that.
Yeah, I can give 2 quick anecdotes for this. One, Aaron's father died of a heart attack in a spin class. He was, I believe, 52 or 53 and in great shape. He looked phenomenal. He could literally come to the gym with us or do a high rocks with us or run an ultra with us. He would have been. So he looked great, but there was one issue. Genetically, his heart was a huge problem. His mother died at a young age of a heart attack, and he wasn't doing enough recovery. So he wasn't doing sauna and ice and the things that we all do today. He was freaking 10 years too late, man. If he was here today, I feel like he would be thriving into his 80s and 90s because he would have been investing in the recovery tools that we have. So first part of that anecdote is one of the reasons that we justify the cost is it's already been shown to us that this could potentially be us. It could be her, it could be me. So saunas in general, I think the stats out there are if you sauna regularly, 60% chance reduction in heart attack. Chance of heart attack. So easy right there. The cost of the heart attack is either your life or way more than $10,000. Mm-hmm. So boom, easy right there. Second thing I look at it is the price versus cost. So you have the price, which is $10,000, but the cost of your health over the long run and in the aggregate, is it going to be more than $10,000 if you don't do things like sauna? So if you're an athlete like I am and you're training all the time, what's the cost of getting injured? Not even just like going to the doctor, taking time off. What's the cost mentally to you? What's the cost spiritually to you? Mentally, do I show up as a better husband because I get the sauna and ice every day? Easy answer is yes. So aligning the cost of that far outweighs the $10,000 price point that most people look at. They only look at the price. Oh, that's too expensive. But the reality is you're paying for it one way or the other. What do you want to pay for? That's what you have to choose. So that's how I've kind of looked at not only sauna, but red light and my ice bath and other ways is over a 10-year span, over a 20-year span, over a 30-year span. What's the cost of doing this thing versus not doing this thing? And is the price outright worth those differences in cost?
How do you bake recovery into your weekly schedule? Because you obviously have lofty goals and just doing the 50K and things like that. But if you ignore the recovery stuff, it's like you can...
Goes to priority. I do it every day.
Yeah.
Some form every day. One is better than none is the saying I say to myself. So a couple minutes in the sauna, jump in the ice bath is better than not doing it at all. I probably might... It depends on like some days I might take a day here and there, or if I'm traveling, obviously I have to either not do it or find somewhere to do it. But because I have it at my house, and that's why like, again, prioritization, I prioritize to have it at my house so that I can do it every single day and that takes priority. It just sets the standard for your life and your quality of life. And the other thing is like the number one gold standard for health is sleep. It's free. Everybody can do it. So that's where when I come on any show or put out content, like that's the one I'm going to harp on the most because anybody can improve their sleep. You might not have 10K to spend on the sauna, but if you want to improve your sleep, sauna and ice certainly help.
If you're a busy founder, you're still prioritizing sleep, even if you have a ton of shit to do.
Oh yeah. I mean, you just use the word busy. If you're a busy founder, I don't want to be around you. If you're a productive founder, I want to be around you. Huge difference.
Yeah, the word busy gets so abused. Like that's one I'm trying to cut out. I feel like I found myself saying it way too much. And it's just one of those words that makes you seem unproductive, which is something I'm trying to work on.
Like going back to Michael Jordan, was Michael Jordan busy? No, he was training 24/7 to win a championship. Was he booked? Was his time booked? Sure. But was he busy? No, like not at all. He wasn't busy trying to do 7 things at one time. He was like in the gym or he was shooting out on the court.
Yeah.
And like hyper focused on what actually needs to happen.
It's really good perspective. You touched on earlier connecting our mutual buddy Noah with Squatch. And I've seen you facilitate a lot of different connections and a lot of different relationships. And Harry and I talk about this a lot. I think one of the most underrated types of alpha that you can create is being a connector and facilitating connections and relationships with people. And I'm just curious, like, kind of what is your overarching philosophy on, relationship building, connecting? Why is it important for you to connect different groups of people that you think will get along?
I've actually never been asked this question in this way. So kudos.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great question. If we took away money and jobs and goals and dreams, and you were just left with just human beings, what do we all crave?
Connection, friendship, whatever.
Yeah,
Love.
Just want to be involved. So to simply put it, I know what it's like to want to be involved and to not have anybody helping me get involved. So I had to stick my neck out and like force my involvement. So I just remember being that, and I try to get people involved as much as possible because I know what it's like to be that person. I know what it's like to be the person that moves to a new city and doesn't know anybody. And you're just sitting alone in your apartment being like, shit, like, was this the right decision? Did I move to the right place? Are the right people going to be here? I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know who's here to help me figure out what to do. All those questions have crossed my mind before. So if I have an opportunity where I feel like people will benefit from their involvement with each other, I tend to be the person that's going to go out of my way to make it happen.
The loneliness factor that you were just kind of speaking about is so real for a lot of people, like just kind of not being able to figure out how to tap in. So they just don't like give it the effort that it needs, or they don't have the person to pull them into something. It's like, I think it's more common than most people realize.
100%. And the reason is we're overstimulated in today's day. Like let's take the person that's working from home and they work for a company. They're talking to people all day, but are they connecting with anybody?
Probably not.
I would say definitely no.
Yeah. So we are confusing ourselves as humans by, you could look across the board. We are feeding ourselves food that's not food. We are feeding ourselves conversations that aren't connecting us. We are stimulating ourselves with things that are just boosting dopamine and not creating more curiosity or more problem solving skills. Across the board, we're doing the same thing to our brain and our body. And I think when you talk about connection, that's a huge one, because we have the ability to be lazy now. You can sit at home and watch Netflix. Mm-hmm. You can just sit on your phone and like people's stories, and you don't have that, like, okay, I don't drink anymore, but I see the purpose of bars and why they existed 50 years ago. What'd you do on a Friday night? There was no internet to like see what was out there. Yeah. Did you want to just sit in your house after 5 days of work? No, you wanted to go meet people and connect with people. Drinking alcohol helps a lot of people connect because it lowers their insecurities and stuff like that. They have a couple of drinks and they connect better. So that's how like the bar scene really evolved, is because connection. And that's why I'm heavily involved in the fitness scene, because we can utilize that feeling of when you work out next to other people, it's almost the same effect as that alcohol. It gives you that dopamine. And then once that dopamine hits you and the workout's done, you start connecting in better ways. Same with sauna. That's another big thing. It was like you get in sauna for 10 minutes, the best conversations you're going to have, because that dopamine starts hitting, people's layers start to come apart and they start opening up, and then they walk out of it and there's like, damn, that was a great experience. But that used to happen in everyday life because we didn't have these tools that were distracting us.
On the topic of fitness, I've seen you post about a number of the different High Rocks competitions that you've done. Harry was mentioning you're doing the 50K. I don't remember what High Rocks competition it was that you did, but you did a little write-up about it, and you basically said, I actually hate doing these things, but I do it because I want to show up for other people. I forget the rationale is, and I'm wondering if you remember what that post was or what you said, but I thought it was a really cool perspective on like why you're consciously kind of like choosing to suffer and do something that you might not actually win.
I probably won't win. You just know, like the other thing that sports teaches, you know when you got it, and then you know when you just you're just you're the sub on the team. When it comes to high rocks, like I'm the sub. I don't have the want. If I really wanted to win, I could be up there with the top people, but the cost of that, going back to pricing, the cost of that's too high. I'd rather be the guy that can do really, really well, but is high-fiving people when he's in there and brings 20 new people to High Rocks because he loves the team aspect and the camaraderie and like feeling like when I was in New York, I just did, I think my 11th race in New York, and my buddy who I used to work with at my first job, UBS, Peter Sportello, shout out to him. He's a new dad, and he looked at the race and he's like, man, like I think I'm gonna do this. And he doesn't train like we do.
Yeah.
He freaking commutes into New York every day, puts a suit on, and seeing him out there racing, like that was more fulfilling than me winning on the podium. Like, because afterwards he's like, I think I'm gonna do that again. Like I'm hooked. I want to like improve my score. And like my partner, Alex Radcliffe, same thing. He's a financial advisor. Him and his wife like didn't train like that at all. Not at all. And then saw me do it. And you're like, saw Aaron and I do it. And was like, you know what? We're going to try this. And they got destroyed in their first one. But then Alex was like, I think I'm going to do this again. And that's when I asked him, hey, would you want to do doubles with me? Like, we don't got to kill ourselves. Let's just do doubles. And I've known him since I was like 7 years old. He grew up on my street. So, and he went to Rutgers with me, and we started a fraternity together, and now we're running High Rocks together. So it's a way to like reconnect with people that he lives 1,000 miles away from me, but now we send videos to each other of us training. And then that training, I'll wrap this story with, he trains at Lifetime in I believe Bridgewater area. And our other buddy, Alex, who is the head like GM there, they saw each other High Rocks style training, and they walk up to each other and like, dude, are you training for High Rocks?
Yeah.
And they're both like, yeah. So now they're best buddies. Alex ran in Houston. He got my truck with me. Both of them drove back with me. They hung out at my house. And now like I have a new friend because my partner in High Rocks trains at the gym and is best friends with pretty much like when you think of like Lifetimes, you have like the owners that don't exist, like they're not anywhere to be seen, but then you have like the GMs who are like the head people there. That's our other buddy. And so now I have that connection as well, just because I was like, you know what, like what's my role here at these races? Like, yeah, I could try and kill myself to win these races, or I could train for them and do really well at them. But I think my role is more of like team dad.
I actually love that, and I'm so bummed that neither of us have done a High Rocks because we don't have the context. But from an outsider looking in, it seems like such a great sport in the fact that it serves a lot of different purposes for a lot of different people. Like if you want to be the top end guy finishing on the podium, like go for it. That's awesome. But the barrier to entry seems a little bit more approachable than some of these other events out there, like CrossFit Games or a full distance, like Ironman, any level. Like you really just kind of have to like want to work out and be consistent with it in that fashion of working out, and you can do it.
To that point, that's how I got involved. Like February of 2020, my buddy Eric had two extra tickets to this new fitness race, High Rocks in Dallas, and he asked my buddy Ross and me. Ross said yes, and I said yes, and that's why he reached out to us. He knew we would just be like, yeah, we wouldn't even look into it. He'd say, yeah, trip up to Dallas to do this fun fitness thing, whatever, let's do it. Ross unfortunately couldn't do it. I think his mom was in town or something. But I ended up going up with Eric, and I didn't look at the race. I didn't look at what I was doing prior to the race. I just like showed up. It was so bad, dude. It was like, I approached it like it was a marathon. Like I'm running 26 miles today, but it's not that. Like High Rocks is more intricate than that. So 10 minutes into it, I'm like, holy shit, I'm about to get wrecked. This is really bad. This is really bad. And I'm also way out of shape than I thought, way more out of shape than I thought. Like I look great. Like I've been in the gym, but I haven't ran this much. Like within 10 minutes, I was like, I haven't ran this much since I was a college soccer player. Holy shit. So then I see like people that are out of shape passing me. I ran like a 144, which is terrible. Right now I could probably run like a 105 to give context. But I ran the 144. I shit myself after the race. I literally, I used to smoke weed. So I literally just smoked and went to sleep for like 6 hours because that's how bad I felt. Now today, let's flash forward, I can literally go to the gym after doing high rocks. So what I ended up doing was, it got me because I could sign up and just show up. Yes, you're going to be in a lot of pain if you do what I did, but you can make it happen. Like, you're not going to be able to, you're going to get DQ'd in an Ironman if you do that. But like at High Rocks, you could just show up. You could buy your ticket the week of, show up, and it might take you 2 hours, but you're going to get through it and you're going to learn a lot about yourself. And if you're like me and you're competitive, you ask yourself, damn, what could I get on this if I actually tried now that I'm here? But pandemic happened, so then we had to wait, and that's when Noah moved here. And as soon as they started doing the races again back in Dallas, we got a team, we got people to go up. It was me, Chelsea, Aaron, and our buddy Joe Lindley. And this was funny because Joe was there to film us, shows up as soon as we get into the arena, feels the vibe. It's like to paint a picture, it's family friendly. There's music bumping, like people on the loudspeaker telling people like, good job and whatever, people high-fiving, people with signs. It's freaking awesome. And Joe shows up to this and he tries to sign up on the spot because he's like, dude, this is sick. Like, screw like filming you guys. I'm going to try and do this right now. They wouldn't let him do it. But then like my wife, Erin, saw it and she was like, this is really cool. Like, I want to do it. And it gets a lot of people that way. They go to spectate one time and they're like, like, I feel like this would be a great challenge for me. It's going to suck, but it's going to be a great challenge. And to your point, like, I don't like doing them, like, not a single one. I just show up and just like, yeah, this is going to be the best day ever. But what I do enjoy is that feeling of like everyone there and people coming together to push themselves, and the thoughts I have throughout the race where you get so clear on life and what matters and who do you think about when things are hard. And those things are invaluable to progressing in life.
So do you just have a commitment where you're like, look, I'm going to do one a quarter or a couple a year or something like that?
Yeah, I'm going to do my 12th one will be in Dallas. I would probably do more if they were just around.
Yeah.
If they had more Texas events, I would probably do all of them. So if they had 4 Texas events a year, I'd probably do all 4. But they typically they just started Houston last year. So depending on in the spring where Houston and Dallas is, I'll probably do 2 next spring, both Houston and Dallas. But the fall, it looks like the only Texas race is Dallas. And then they have Chicago, New York, LA. So you can fly into them, but like at this time in my life, I just don't have the capacity to do it. But I have done Chicago, Dallas, Houston, Austin. I think there's New York twice.
There's something to be said about putting on a big event on the calendar that really sharpens the axe towards. And I think you're giving Harry and I some juice because we've both, we've done a shitload of races, mostly endurance races. And our excuse has just been, we're trying to build these 2 brands right now. We're going to treat that like the race, but there's still something that's missing versus like actually doing that incredible experience, having that training, going through the suffering of it, like the brotherhood of doing it with someone else. Like you just can't, I don't think you can really replace that with anything else.
You just have to tap into team dad mode.
Team dad mode.
You like, don't set a finish time goal. Don't set like the journey is the goal now. So is the journey of building a business better with you guys signing up for a race? I would say 100% yes.
Yeah.
So sign up for a race and focus on the journey of the training together. Don't go into it with, okay, we have this time goal or whatever. And that's what I had to do with High Rocks. Cause at first, like I caught myself like studying the times and wanting to go to the World Championships, which I did do. And then my goal was to do sub 120 at the World Championships with a guy that's 155 pounds. That's a like really good goal. I got like 119 something and I was in Vegas and my wife was there and we took like, it was the pinnacle. It was one of the pinnacles of like my competitive career in anything. It was awesome. And then after that, when I looked at myself, I was like, I don't want to do that again, but I don't want to quit. So what do I do? So that's when I was like, you know what? I'm going to enter doubles because like, I don't give a fuck whether I win doubles or I don't. Like we set the goal to do sub 1 hour, which we did. But I haven't come out of a doubles race being like, damn, that was terrible. Like, no, me and Alex have a blast. I've done it with Braden. We have a blast. No matter what happens with my wife, it's just going to be awesome to be in the arena with her. And the training, like I was running on Lady Bird Lake. Here, I'm going to whip my phone out real quick and I'm going to show you. I was running on Lady Bird Lake on Saturday, and I sent this video to those two Alexes, Armiento and Radcliffe. Why isn't both of them coming up? I want to show it to you, but basically I sent a video message when I was running, and I was like, guys, like, I'm out here running alone on Lady Bird Lake. Like, wish I was running with you guys, yada, yada. And my buddy, like 10 minutes later, sends back a video of him running with one of his longtime friend, his father, who's like in his mid 60s.
Wow.
They're on a camping trip right now. So he is training and got him to run a couple miles while he was on the camping trip. And then my other buddy sends the screenshot of his 5 miles that he ran prior to him flying out for his vacation that day. So like, I don't give a shit about the day of the race. What I care about is like, I'm having fun just like in the journey with these guys, seeing them improve. Like, that's the cool thing. Cause every time I see them 6 months later, I'm like, holy crap, you guys are kicking my ass. Like, you're putting the work in, like, and it just fires me up to just keep doing the same thing.
Dude, having that shared mission is something that I feel like competitive sports just plants that seed in you for the rest of your life. And then a lot of people just grow detached from it. But it's so much fun doing these, like, you don't really need to have the crazy goal, like, other than just enjoying the process, like you were saying, but doing it with other people is like the golden nugget.
Do you remember any wins and losses really of any of the games you played besides the championship games? I'm saying like the everyday, every week games that you played like in high school or college. Like, I remember like none. I remember a single thing, but I remember the people I did it with.
Definitely.
Connection through fitness, baby.
Yeah.
That's what it's about.
Yeah. I remember the special times that we had like in the locker room or like on the bus, like the fun times we had there. The games, I can't remember. I can't even remember the ones I did good in or did bad in. I can't.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like Austin's cultivating this environment too, with just fitness being like a major part of the whole culture and community aspect of being down here. Like, it's great.
Yeah, it's something I've asked myself, like, why here? If you fly out of here, like we spent 3 weeks on the East Coast and I was just like, holy shit. Like, you just realize like how much of a bubble we live in here. And I've asked myself, like, why here? Why now? And I haven't really stumbled upon a good answer. So I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that.
I think I do have my thoughts. I think a lot of the coastal cities are centered around cultures that are based around like sports or like heavy drinking cultures. And a lot of people who feel misfit in those cities have looked to a new city or looked for a new spot where drinking, sports culture, sports dominant culture, like, isn't necessarily the thing. There's no sports team here.
Isn't it intriguing that like you have sports culture that breeds like the opposite of what sports embody?
Definitely.
It's, now that I think about it, I'm from Philly, heavy sports culture.
Almost.
But if you go to any of the sporting events, the people that are off the field don't look like they played a sport.
They're all fat fucks.
Yeah, they're living.
Phillies jerseys.
They're living.
We're gonna have to clip that one up.
Literally, I mean, that's just they just have like boom, 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 boom of all the different fans and the Eagles fans and whatever. Like it. They're literally just living that. I think, to your point, in those areas, they are living through other people. And I've noticed in Austin, people aren't trying to live through other people. They're trying to live their damn life, and they're trying to build something out of their life rather than spending their weekends living vicariously in some other way.
Yeah.
So I think you're spot on with that.
Yeah, he is spot on. And Austin is this oasis that really shouldn't be an oasis. It's super hot. We're in the middle of central Texas. There's no ocean. It's flat. But it's like, why are so many people
I didn't
here?
realize how much it sucked, like, to your point, until I had Aiden.
Yeah.
I'm at home. I'm just like, and to be fully candid, like, we're probably going to end up moving in the next year or two because for that very reason. It's just like, oh, I checked off these areas of my life. It's like, it's great for training and fitness because if you run in 100 degrees, like, you're damn sure in the fall, you're going to be a fucking beast.
Yeah.
It's great for entrepreneurship. Like, everyone here is just super creative and wants to help each other. And to your point, like, doesn't really focus on the drinking culture and those areas of life. But when you come to like planning routes and like settling down, I started thinking, like, what do you do with your kids here?
It's a great
Take them to Ladybird Lake every freaking
That's a
weekend.
great question.
Like
Yeah.
Let them float down the Brazos or what's the
where is it?
San
New
Marcos?
Braunfels.
Yeah, New
Yeah.
Braunfels.
Yeah, take them to New Braunfels. Yeah, the amount of free stuff to do is not like I could spend a month at the beach and the kids would love it. And I could go run and I could go to the gym and be outside and really enjoy myself, grill, do all the things I love to do. But then you got here and it's, holy shit, I can't even take them outside until like we have to be careful with him to go outside.
Yeah.
And that it's been a really interesting mind opener for me because in my mind, I never had pictured leaving Austin. Like I was 5 cities in 3 years prior to moving here. And when I got here, we never left because we're just like, oh, this is a dope place. Like why even put that thought in your head? Yeah. And then last year we were in between houses and we were staying in an Airbnb in a place called Mueller Lake Park here in Austin, Texas. And if you're familiar with Mueller, there's literally kids everywhere. It's like Kids Central and it's like a young professional place to live. They have volleyball courts and there's a farmer's market on the weekend and there's pools in the neighborhood. And we're sitting there at the pool. And I remember like dipping my feet in and being like, this is freaking piss water. And I see the parents there and none of them look happy. Yeah. They're just like in the pool sweating and the kids are like mediocre happy. Mm-hmm. But then I thought to myself, I am not a pool dad. No. I'm not going to sit at the pool every day of summer when our kids are not in school. So what are we going to do? And that's when the first thought of like, okay, if we were to be optimized for children and family life, where in the country would that be?
And where do we think that's going to be?
Raleigh, North Carolina.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's where you're running your 50K or somewhere near there?
I'm running it in Charlotte.
Okay.
Lake Norman. My brother lives around there. So my parents and my brother live in Charlotte. And I'm very calculated when it comes to different things. I wanted to move to Colorado because I wanted to just train in the mountains. But the problem with there is like you don't get the beach. And then we're further away from family. So something with having a child that I didn't really think would hit me as hard as it did is seeing Aaron's mother and then my parents with Aiden and just like the chills you kind of get when you see them. You see sides of your parents that you've never seen before because they haven't brought that out since you were born. Yes. And when you were born, you don't remember. Like, so they're kind of interacting with Aiden the way they interacted with me as a baby, and I never got to see that. I didn't see that side of them. So it's so cool. So cool. And you start thinking, oh my God, every time I see them, they look older because you only see them every couple months. They don't live here. And I'm like, holy shit, like this is life in front of me, new life. And then life that's like, this life is starting to blossom and this life is at its, not at its end. If they take care of themselves, they got hopefully a couple of decades left, but we need to make it so that they can interact more. And it's not about me anymore. That feeling of like, this isn't about me anymore. I feel like for the past 5 to 10 years, like it's only been about, same with Aaron, it's been about us. We're going to live where we want to live. We're going to do the work that we want to do. We're going to hustle. We're going to grind. But now you start thinking like, as soon as I saw that, holy shit, how do I get closer to them? And closer doesn't mean like they have to be in the same neighborhood or even the same city. It's how do I say, hey, can you come up here for a weekend, like, and spend some time with us, or vice versa? And then Aaron's mom we have a shore house in New Jersey. We went there for 3 weeks and I was like, we could do this every year. Yeah. But I need a freaking car. And like, I just started thinking like cross country travel with 2 kids, 3 kids in the future. I was like, that's going to be a headache. So from North Carolina to New Jersey, it's like 8 to 10 hours. So manageable. It's doable. And they'll have cousins there. I have 2 nephews there. My brother lives in Charlotte, so it'd be 3 hours. Aaron's other sister is about to move to near Columbia, South Carolina. That would be 3 hours. So not to go on a whole tangent of like that, but I feel like this is valuable to the audience as well. Cause just like that hit me like a ton of bricks in like the past 3 months. I did not picture that at all.
It's this really amazing progression where Austin, for both you and Aaron, has been such a special place, especially as a creator, building your relationship to another level, having Aiden, and now it's like the priorities are rewired, having a son, and you're thinking about what does that next step look like? Austin is obviously going to always have a super special place in your heart, amazing chapter, but you know, within the next year, it's going to be, you know, you're on to the next thing. to that next chapter, which is such an amazing feeling because life just keeps getting better and better.
Yeah, it's just a reminder that you just need to keep your mind open, I think. Like you mentioned better and better. I think the more that I open my mind to tomorrow doesn't necessarily look the way that I'm trying to paint it in my mind today. And that's okay because I never thought I'd be sitting here, right?
Yes.
So and I love this. This is like, I would do this every day. So when you think about that and just like opening your mind up to what the possibilities are, you can take it. And if it's not Raleigh, who cares? Like I said
else.
that, but it's like,
Could be somewhere else.
I'm not attached to anything in life anymore. Like I'm not attached to the home. I'm not attached to the job I'm doing today. I'm not attached to the people I'm around besides like my family and my immediate people that I know are lifers with me. I consider you guys that. So it's just like, I know who's going to be around and that's really all that I need. And what it looks like could be a million different ways. And I think the people that I look up to the most, the writers, the authors, the podcasters, they seem to follow that same flow where, and it's funny because I used to like I've seen tweet threads on people being like, you need to move, when you have kids, you need to be near your family. And I'd just be like in my mind, like, fuck that. Like, I'm not moving closer to the East Coast. There's a reason I left and I'm not going. And then as soon as the kid's born, you're just like, oh, and you see them interacting. You're just like, okay, I get their point now. I know why it's almost like an instinctual feeling. It's not even it's not a thought. It's just a feeling I have when everybody's in my home and I see them all together and I'm just like, this is what life is about.
I love it. And this conversation has been so cool for us because you've kind of moved on to that next phase of life from when we talked in the first conversation till now. So just to see the growth and like the level of conversation that we're having has been incredibly cool and valuable. I know both of us are, looking forward to the next phase of life. And it's just cool being able to listen and learn from what you have to offer. So just appreciate you coming on, dude. This was great.
No, I appreciate you. And before we wrap, to your point of the races, if you are looking to get, then this is for everybody else out there, that other person is not going to care about the business side of you. They're going to care about the stuff that you're passionate about. So that girl or that guy, if you hold back doing the races like you guys do, you're like holding back from that opportunity of being open-minded of like, maybe my future wife could be at that race. Or like, maybe my future wife sees me post about that race and is like, oh, I do this stuff too. And so that's the other thing in entrepreneurship is like, don't lose your hobbies. Like it's something I wish somebody told me a long time ago, where it's the hobbies are really what attracts that other person. Because to this day, like Erin knows what I do, but still she's like, do I really know what you do? But when it comes to hobbies and how we hang out and what we do on a daily basis, she loves being in the sauna with me. She loves going on a run around Lady Bird Lake with me. She loves traveling and trying new coffee shops with me. So different things that we do is like our hobby time. She loves that stuff. So if you're like me and you can find yourself stuck in the grind, or like these two fine gentlemen doing that same thing, like just remind yourself that if your goal is to get to that next phase in life with a significant other, kids, whatever it is, there's more that you should be doing and fulfilling yourself with to attract that than just the grind and the hustle of what we're involved in.
It's amazing perspective. Couldn't think of a better note to close it out on. We got you here for one more year though, right?
Oh, at least.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Good.
So many of saunas, cold plunges, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Couple
Next
more shows.
Yeah, you guys have to come hang out. I have the house. I don't think you guys have been there since I got the cold plunge there.
No.
Yeah, so we'll have that set up, and then I got to figure out. I want to have you guys back on my show, so figuring out how to get a third mic in my current setup. I just got to figure out how to do that. We'll make that happen.
Figure that out.
Get Scott on it.
Yeah.
I think I can just ask to borrow his mic. That's what I'll do.
There you go.
So
and we'll bring some raw milk for Aiden too, of course.
Yeah, he's got the best raw milk there is right now. The one that literally keeps humans alive.
Yeah.
Like that's a whole podcast in itself. That's wild. It's been a wild journey to watch that. Like literally we all were just raised on breast milk, or some people obviously get bottle fed, but yeah, humans are awesome. Y'all are awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Brother. Peace.